The UK is serving queer excellence, and Gen Z is leading the charge. From Netflix heartthrobs to red carpet rebels, these 5 young British stars aren't just rising in the spotlight. They're quietly queering it with confidence, charisma, and unapologetic flair. They don't all scream it. Some don't even label it. But through their roles, fashion, music, and vibe, they're changing what it means to be young, gay, and famous in British showbiz. Today on Rainbow Spotlight, we're diving into 5 British Gen Z stars who are redefining visibility, one subtle power move at a time. Get ready for soft boys, style kings, and silent icons who prove that queerness doesn't always have to be loud to be revolutionary. Ready to meet the future? Let's go. Star. Ollie Alexander, the queer icon who turned pain into power. In the landscape of British pop culture, Ollie Alexander isn't just another star. He's a revolution wrapped in glitter. A chart-topping artist, fearless fashion muse, and award-nominated actor, Ollie has become one of the UK's most visible and powerful LGBTQ+ voices. But behind the electric performances and bold red carpet looks is a deeply personal story of vulnerability, strength, and healing. Before the world knew him as the magnetic frontman of Years and Years, Ollie was a queer kid growing up in a small English town. Creative, sensitive, and constantly at odds with a world that didn't make space for boys like him. He faced bullying, depression, and self-doubt, all while quietly navigating his own sexuality. But instead of letting that pain define him, he transformed it into music that pulses with meaning and resilience. When Years and Years broke into the mainstream with hits like King and Shine, Ollie didn't water himself down. On the contrary, he turned up the volume on his queerness. His lyrics spoke of gay love, longing, and freedom. His performances featured same-sex intimacy, gender-fluid fashion, and unapologetic self-expression. He didn't ask for permission. He simply existed, boldly and beautifully. In 2021, his star rose even higher when he starred in the groundbreaking drama It's a Sin, a powerful series about the AIDS crisis in 1980s London. Ollie's performance as Richie Tozer was both heartbreaking and historic, bringing a human face to a chapter of queer history that had long been ignored. The show didn't just win awards, it sparked conversations, broke viewership records, and helped raise awareness about HIV stigma across the UK. But Ollie's impact goes far beyond music and TV. He's used his platform to advocate for mental health, queer youth, and HIV education. He's spoken openly about body image, anxiety, and self-harm. He's walked red carpets in sheer gowns, sequin bodysuits, and custom Gucci, not to shock, but to show that freedom can be fashionable and fashion can be political. Every outfit, every lyric, every interview is another act of visibility. Another way to say, you're not alone. For many young queer people, especially in the UK, Ollie isn't just a celebrity, he's a lifeline. A reminder that you can be gay, talented, glamorous, messy, proud, and still win. That you don't have to fit a mold to be magnificent. And as he prepares to represent the UK at Eurovision, Ollie continues to prove that being queer isn't a limitation. It's his superpower. Drop a 1 if you think Ollie Alexander is the queer icon this generation truly deserves. Will Gao, the soft-spoken star, quietly changing queer representation. Will Gao isn't loud. He doesn't need to be. In a world that often equates queerness with glitter and volume, Will is redefining what queer masculinity looks like. Quiet, artistic, layered, and impossibly graceful. Best known for his role as Tao Xu in Netflix's Heartstopper, Will Gao didn't just play a character. He became a symbol of a new kind of visibility. As part of a show that revolutionized how LGBTQ+ teens are portrayed on screen, Will's presence felt like a breath of fresh air. His character wasn't defined by trauma or tragedy. He was fiercely loyal, emotionally complex, and unafraid to be vulnerable. And through it all, Will brought Tao to life with nuance, subtlety, and a magnetic screen presence that stole hearts across the globe. But Will's power goes far beyond the scripts he's given. Off-screen, he's a classically trained musician, an Oxford poet at heart, and the co-founder of a chamber pop band called Wasia Project with his sister Olivia. Their music, often melancholic and dreamy, feels like a sonic diary, expressive, raw, and very, very queer-coded. Will's voice, soft, fragile, and aching with emotion, feels like someone opening the pages of their soul. And that's exactly what Gen Z needed. Representation that isn't performative, but poetic. Will hasn't labeled himself publicly when it comes to sexuality, and that's part of his quiet power. He's never needed to shout, "I'm queer," to be embraced by the LGBTQ+ community. His energy, his fashion, his vulnerability, they all speak for themselves. In fact, Will's refusal to define himself has become its own form of resistance, a gentle challenge to a world obsessed with categories. In interviews, he talks about emotion with ease. He praises softness. He discusses heartbreak without hiding. And on red carpets, he wears gender-fluid fashion that drips in elegance, pearls, sheer shirts, and flowing silhouettes that wouldn't feel out of place in a Gucci campaign. He doesn't try to look gay. He just looks like Will, ethereal, sensitive, and defiantly himself. He's the kind of icon that sneaks up on you, not because he's trying to be one, but because he's showing a new way of existing. One where art, music, identity, and masculinity are all allowed to blend, overlap, and bloom. Will Gao might not have declared anything out loud, but his existence whispers a new message. You don't have to be loud to take up space. You don't have to be sure of every label to matter. Drop a 2 if Will's quiet rebellion feels like the soft power we all needed right now. Harry Lawtey, the rising star, who redefines power and ambiguity. With his piercing stare, Oxford diction voice, and old money aesthetic, Harry Lawtey doesn't just walk onto the screen, he commands it. Best known for his breakout role in HBO's Industry, Harry plays a sharp, charming, and morally complicated banker. But off-screen, it's his quiet defiance of traditional masculinity and the magnetic ambiguity around his image that's earned him a fast-growing queer fan base. Harry never set out to be a queer icon. In fact, he's never publicly labeled his sexuality. But everything from his fashion choices to the characters he portrays radiates a fluid, unbothered energy, one that feels deliberately open-ended. In Industry, his character is emotionally reckless and sexually ambiguous. The show doesn't shy away from male intimacy or vulnerability, and Harry performs these scenes with the same confidence and depth he brings to high-stakes boardroom showdowns. That authenticity didn't go unnoticed, especially by LGBTQ+ viewers who finally saw reflections of themselves in complex, powerful roles. But Harry's appeal isn't just about queerness, it's about confidence without explanation. Off-screen, he leans into fashion that toes the line between classic and provocative. Think double-breasted Prada suits with plunging necklines, silk shirts half-buttoned at red carpet premieres, monochrome looks that whisper luxury but never scream for attention. It's fashion as character study. And the character? A man completely in control of how much he chooses to reveal. That sense of mystery, combined with undeniable talent, is why queer audiences have quietly crowned him a secret gay icon. He's not loud, he's not labeled. He just exists in a space where softness and strength coexist. And that space feels deeply, refreshingly queer. In interviews, he talks openly about therapy, sensitivity, and the psychological depth he brings to his roles. He praises emotionally complex storytelling and the power of human connection. It's not performative, it's thoughtful, it's intentional, and that's why it resonates. Harry Lawtey is proof that representation doesn't always need to come with a rainbow flag or headline. Sometimes the most powerful statements come from simply refusing to fit the mold. Drop a 3 if you think Harry's quiet confidence and on-screen boldness make him one of Britain's most underrated queer-coded stars. Callum Scott Howells, the actor who gave a face to forgotten queer history. Callum Scott Howells didn't come to make noise, he came to make impact. With just one role, he became the emotional heart of It's a Sin, a series that shattered hearts, made headlines, and finally gave voice to a generation silenced by history. As Colin Morris Jones, Callum delivered one of the most devastatingly honest performances in recent queer television, quiet, gentle, and utterly unforgettable. Born in Wales and trained at the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama, Callum didn't arrive with tabloid hype or celebrity buzz. But when It's a Sin aired in 2021, everything changed. The show, set during the height of the AIDS epidemic in the 1980s London, told the stories the world had forgotten. And through Colin's eyes, audiences saw the cost of silence, stigma, and institutional neglect. Callum's portrayal wasn't showy, it was real. His character didn't die with drama, he died with dignity, in a hospital room quietly and unjustly. And in doing so, he forced a new generation to confront an old truth: that queer people were failed, erased, and left to grieve in shadows. But it wasn't just the performance that made Callum a standout. It was the empathy behind it. Off-screen, he's just as thoughtful. Openly gay, Callum has used every opportunity to speak out about queer history, health inequality, and the importance of storytelling. He doesn't chase fame, he chases meaning. His fashion is fresh and vintage-inspired, often styled with soft masculinity, high-waisted trousers, pastel knits, wide-brim hats, a touch of Billy Porter flair with old-school Welsh charm. It's queer fashion, but not performative, more poetry than pop. And he brings that same intentionality to his career. He's selective with roles. He talks about acting as a chance to carry people's truths. He views art as activism. And that matters, because in an era of algorithm-fueled fame, Callum's brand is honesty. He's since been cast in major West End productions, appeared on high-profile interviews across the UK, and continues to advocate for queer youth and HIV awareness. He's not flashy, but he's fierce. The kind of artist whose work lingers long after the credits roll. Callum Scott Howells reminds us that queer icons aren't always the loudest or the most glamorous. Sometimes they're the ones who tell the hardest stories, beautifully, painfully, and with a softness that breaks your heart open. Drop a 4 if you think Callum's performance in It's a Sin was one of the most powerful things you've ever seen on TV. Kit Young, the scene stealer, with secret queer energy. You don't need to hear Kit Young speak to know he's a star. You can see it in the way he moves, the way he holds a gaze, the way he slips between roles like he was born for the stage. Best known for his breakout as Jesper Fahey in Netflix's Shadow and Bone, Kit didn't just play the charming sharpshooter, he became him. And in doing so, he quietly won the hearts of LGBTQ+ fans around the world. Jesper wasn't your typical fantasy hero. He flirted with men, oozed confidence, and wielded both charm and chaos like weapons. He was queer-coded, and unapologetically so. And Kit Young didn't shy away from it. In fact, he leaned in. Every smirk, every suggestive glance, every moment of vulnerability added dimension to a character that could have been one note. Instead, Jesper became a fan favorite, and Kit, a stealth queer icon. Off-screen, Kit exudes the same energy, unbothered, unboxed, and a little bit magical. Though he hasn't publicly labeled his sexuality, his openness to playing fluid characters and embracing non-traditional masculinity speaks volumes. He wears pearl necklaces with blazers, sheer shirts with silk pants. On red carpets, he's a fashion wildcard, in the best way. But Kit's appeal isn't just aesthetic, it's emotional intelligence. In interviews, he talks about identity with nuance, art with reverence, and characters as portals to something bigger. He's a theater kid at heart, trained at RADA, polished on Shakespeare, and raised on stories that push boundaries. For many fans, especially queer youth, Kit represents the middle space, not fully out, not closeted, just authentically himself. He's a reminder that queerness isn't always loud or defined. Sometimes it's fluid, sometimes it's private. Sometimes it's in the way someone walks through the world with quiet confidence and velvet softness. And let's be honest, Jesper's chemistry with Wylan? Pure fire. The kind of representation that's fun, flirty, and full of heart. Kit handled it all with grace, showing queer love and fantasy without making it a plot device or a punchline. In a media landscape still catching up to what queerness really looks like, Kit Young offers something rare, a presence that feels both grounded and transformative. He doesn't scream, "Look at me," but somehow you can't look away. Drop a 5 if you think Kit Young's queer-coded charm is rewriting what fantasy heroes can be. In a world that still tries to define people by boxes and binaries, these stars are rewriting the rules. One look, one role, one bold choice at a time. They're not just actors or artists. They're cultural architects, visionaries, icons in the making. Whether out and proud or quietly powerful in their presence, they remind us that queerness isn't always loud. It can be elegant, complex, and beautifully unspoken. And the deeper lesson? Authenticity doesn't always need a label. Sometimes being true to yourself means simply refusing to fit into a mold. Whether you're in Dior on the red carpet or delivering a Shakespearean monologue on stage. In a society obsessed with definition, these artists remind us that freedom begins when we stop needing to explain ourselves and start living unapologetically. Drop the number of your favorite star in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more untold stories that celebrate pride, power, and everything in between. Only on Rainbow Spotlight.